Hi, welcome back, or maybe welcome for the first time to Freedom Becomes You. I'm Julian Walker, I'm your host, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. I'm going to be sharing my interview with Matthew Remski. You may know Matthew as a yoga teacher. He travels the world, often teaching the philosophy segment in various teacher training programs. This is because he wrote a fascinating book that he calls a remix of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. It's called Threads of Yoga. And I think it's a wonderful updating of what is a kind of a stuffy, puritanical, out-of-date text that's not really up to the speed of what we're doing in the yoga world right now in the 21st century. You might also know of Matthew because of his article he wrote, a much shared, much debated, controversial article about Kino McGregor. Kino McGregor is a really well-known, lovely yoga teacher. I'm not saying anything bad about her, but she's very well known for her Instagram and YouTube videos and photographs of her doing extremely flexible yoga poses that verge on contortionism. She does them all with a big smile and sort of encourages everyone else to do them in a way that people find really inspiring. But when Kino had a hip injury and was sort of touch and go about how much of that she was really sharing with her fans, Matthew found this an interesting topic in terms of getting into this whole area of how we think about the body, how we treat our bodies, what traditional attitudes toward the body and towards pain, especially in the yoga teacher-student relationship, have been in the yoga tradition, and whether or not that's really sustainable. You might also know Matthew as the journalist who broke the story about the tragic death of Ian Thorsten and his involvement with renegade Buddhist meditation teacher Michael Roach. You know, here at Freedom Becomes You, I'm really interested in subject matter that is about how you and I and the whole world can become more free. I'm interested in the innovators, the integrators, those who are working at the growing edges where science and psychology, mind-body practice, philosophy are all meeting one another. So whether you know Matthew Remski or not, whether you know me or not, I really hope you enjoy this excerpt that I'm going to share with you here on YouTube. If you appreciate it, remember you can always click through to freedombecomesyou.com and watch the entire full-length interview absolutely free. Just log in using your social media credentials. You can browse the site to your heart's content, and then you'll get notifications from me when I post a new interview or when I put up a new article and on how the site is going as we get it really fully up and running. I hope to see you soon. Thanks so much for your time.
You know, perhaps the breakthrough article in the series was about featured an interview that I did with Kino McGregor after she announced after she announced on Instagram that she had injured her hip. So the interview was really about you know, do you feel that there's a relationship between how intensely you practice and your, you know, this injury or susceptibility to injury? Are you going to put, you know, disclaimers on some of your YouTube videos? Are you going to give contraindications? Like, what's your attitude as a practitioner of extreme body openness? What is your attitude towards teaching and communication?
And just to say, Matthew, for anyone who doesn't know, Kino McGregor is a very high-profile kind of social media presence. She's beautiful, she's extremely flexible, and she has a lot of videos demonstrating how to get into really profoundly contorted poses that require extreme range of motion.
And the one of the things that I'm focusing on on a theoretical basis in WAWADIA is what is this drive towards end range of motion postures? What is the openness bias, as I've come to call it, of modern postural yoga? Because what it does is it equates flexibility, joint range of movement, with certain psychological or even spiritual values.
That's right.
Of openness, receptivity, surrender, and so on. And of course, the tissues only want to be so open for so much of the time. Before surrender becomes more like collapse or giving up or chronic injury and pain. And so I've been exploring that a lot, and the meaning of flexibility, the sensation of flexibility, the meaning of it. I think that there's a number of different perspectives. One is that in what Deleuze calls a gaseous economy, such as we have now, where things are basically online, there are no borders. It's really difficult to figure out, what time you're even supposed to be working. There are no real time schedules anymore. To go to your end range of motion in your body gives you some kind of limit or containment. That actually, going to bone on bone gives you a sense of where you actually are in space. Now, any intensity of sensation will do that, but I think it might be a little bit easier for that to happen when we go to the openness end of the spectrum. So that's one part of it.
Yeah.
The other part of it is that there's a very old, so that's like a contemporary culture influence. But the other part of it is that there's a very old ascetic draw towards dismemberment, towards the sacrifice of the primeval man in Vedic literature, the Purusha Sukta, where this beautiful poem that describes the creation of the world as a kind of dismemberment of a fundamental of a first person. And I think what it's expressing, I'm not a Sanskrit scholar or anything like that, but just as a student of world poetry and mythology, what it seems to be expressing is the notion that creativity implies sacrifice and death, that the world actually emerges through a splitting open of the body. And it feels to me like there's an awful lot of end range, extreme range motion asana that's actually about pulling the body apart so that a new self can be born. Now, I didn't talk about any of that with Kino McGregor, but I think that that's the kind of somatic messaging that surrounds the kind of asana that she presents, where range of motion is equated with freedom.
And not to villainize her, because she's an expression of a much broader kind of zeitgeist in a way. Right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, and that's where I get into trouble as a writer. Some of it deserved, some of it not, for commenting on public figures in the yoga world, or just simply working with their stories, as if what they were doing did not have sort of public health implications. With over 1 million social media followers, it's very important what somebody like McGregor tells her students to do.